Hi guys, and welcome to our channel. My name's Imad and I'm a tutor at Study Buddies. We are an established education centre based in East London, providing quality after-school tuition to children ages 6 to 18, from primary school through to A-levels. We specialise in maths, English, sciences and 11 plus tutoring, providing small group and one-to-one classes from just £6.50 an hour. If you'd like to know more about us, then please visit our website at www.studybuddies.co.uk. You'll find our details on the screen. So today we'll be looking at simile, metaphor and symbolism, and how they tie in with the use of figurative language in the text. These techniques can be quite useful when commenting on specific details in a passage. So let's start off with simile. Now simile is a way of describing one thing by associating it with something completely different that shares a common attribute or link. This then helps the descriptions seem emphasized and more vivid. Let's take a look at how this works in an example. This one's from Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 3. The grey-eyed morn smiles on the frowning light, checkering the eastern clouds with streaks of light, and fleckled darkness like a drunkard reels. So we've got a simile in this last line, and fleckled darkness like a drunkard reels. Now here we've got two subjects. We've got darkness and we've got a drunkard. Now like we've mentioned in the description, these two things are almost completely unrelated. But the common attribute between them is that they're both said to reel. Now, reeling is an act of spinning or moving in a way that's out of control. Darkness, in its movement to daylight, is made by Shakespeare to seem out of control. And so he's linking it to a drunkard who's also out of control and unable to control their movements. In this way, he's using an image that's completely different to darkness to exaggerate a certain element of it. Now the good thing about simile is that it's quite easy to spot because the phrasing is quite specific in most similes. In this example we've got like a being used between the two attributes. Darkness like a drunkard reels. Another example is as something as a. So for example, as cold as ice or as tall as a tree. Now when we're looking at a long piece of passage, if we can remember to spot these words, we'll often be finding a simile. Next up we've got metaphor. Now metaphor is another use of figurative language. It's quite similar to simile, except that where simile says two things are like each other, metaphor will say they're the same thing because they share a common attribute. If we look at this other example from Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 2. Soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. So where we've got Juliet is the sun, she's not just like the sun in this metaphor, she is the sun because she shares a common attribute of radiance and warmth. Now metaphor can be quite a dramatic tool of description because unlike simile, it breaks the rules of language to show that two different things are the same thing. If we take this example, Juliet is one word associated with one thing, and the sun is associated with something completely different. Now, in normal language, we would keep these two words different because they are describing different things. But with metaphor, the link between them, the warmth that they share, is implied to be so strong that the literal barrier that separates the two words is broken, so they become the same thing. I should note that metaphor uses the second term to amplify the first term. So here, the focus is on Juliet. The description is about Juliet. The image of the sun is used to exaggerate a quality of Juliet. So finally we've got symbolism. Now symbolism ties in with figurative language because it relies on symbols to represent certain ideas or qualities. These symbols often come from cultural or historical precedents. For example, if we were to use the symbol of the cross, we might associate it with the quality of hope or maybe sacrifice because there are religious precedents to it. In this example from Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare uses two symbols from ancient Roman culture to exaggerate the qualities of a girl named Rosalind. He says, "Well, in that hit you miss, she'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow, she hath Dian's wit." Now, at the start of the play, Romeo falls for a girl named Rosalind, who basically ignores him and doesn't return his affections. In ancient Roman culture, Cupid is the son of Venus, who is the goddess of love. So Cupid's arrow, as you might know, when he shoots someone with it, they fall in love. Secondly, we've got she hath Dian's wit. Now, when Shakespeare uses the word Dian, it refers to the goddess Diana, who is the goddess of the hunt and of the moon. In Roman custom, she's often seen to be quite unromantic and quite cold even. So him relating Diana to Rosalind gives her the same qualities. Symbolism is quite useful because it adds a certain depth to description and sometimes to simile and metaphor. Now, in some cases, references to popular culture are involved in symbolism. So we recognize certain cultural symbols. Because we get the references made, we also feel more involved in the text or the play, as if it's meant for us. Now, cultural symbols offer us a certain opportunity when it comes to exams. If we've got some understanding of Greek or Roman culture, you'll be able to appreciate the classical references in Shakespeare a lot more. So on top of symbolism, you can make a brief mention about the culture he's referencing, and that way add to your argument. As I've mentioned before, a lot of the time literary techniques, they don't come just as single separate techniques, they are joined together, they're sort of interwoven. So it helps to have a little bit of knowledge about classical allusions as a way of fleshing out your argument a little bit more. If you're not familiar with Greek or Roman culture, that's no problem, because you can just look up the words that you don't know, especially if they're names, and that way you just get enough of what you need to be able to talk about a cultural symbol or reference being used. If you're really uncomfortable with commenting on classical allusions, you've still got things like figurative language which you can focus on. A lot of the time, normal images like the sun or the moon will be used in similes and metaphors and in description. And in that way, you've still got something to comment on if you really don't want to talk about things like Greek or Roman culture. So that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be talking about personification and figurative language. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and feel free to subscribe to our channel to see more videos like this. In the meantime, stay tuned and I'll see you next week.